All right, let's start. So we are here at Dilate Studio and blessed with the presence of two awesome people from Mailchimp and one from Nova. So I'm going to introduce them. We got Anthony Capano, which is Regional Director at Intuit Mailchimp. Eugene Dalmanto, which is Head of Partnership at Intuit Mailchimp for Australia and New Zealand. And Alicia Deagle, Account Director at Nova FM. Amazing. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Awesome. We're here to chat about marketing and before the event about better customer journeys. Let's chat about performance marketing and brand. When I know there's this discussion, almost this war about performance is more important than brand awareness is more important, but we need both. Eugene, you want to kick off with this, and what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think that you need a holistic strategy for both. You can't live with the other in that sense, without the other, sorry. So from a performance marketing perspective, definitely you need it to attract the awareness, getting a recognition for the brand. And then from a branding perspective, it needs to continue on to drive that loyalty aspect of things as well. So how do we then convert the awareness traffic that is coming towards that brand, and then figuring out what to do with those conversions moving forwards? And then when they do become customers, what do we actually do to get them to become advocates of our brand itself and actually refer?
Right?
Yeah, and make it a lot more holistic and cyclical rather than a linear funnel process, I would say.
Yeah, and Anthony, you have a past experience at Rakuten, correct? So e-commerce, so very performance focused. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's evolved over the years. I think brand and performance often sat in separate silos, even in organisations. And I do feel, even just being in other markets and coming back to Australia recently, it is a lot more integrated now. They typically do have different metrics, I would suggest, even to today. Performance very much around short-term ROI, performance metrics, be it CPA or CPCs, and etc., versus what traditionally brand is potentially more longer-term focus.
Yeah.
I do feel that more and more, most recently, it is coming to blend in, and I actually feel like it is more important now than ever to be ensuring that you've got that integration between the two, and marketers are realising that today, because branding dollars and spend, things are changing, and performance also. You can't just simply look at that last click in a channel anymore. You need to look beyond that, and I think marketers are getting that now, and they're really bringing this together across all different channels now.
And spot on. And I think as of today, I was reading some studies. It's about 6 to 7 touch points before someone decides to purchase something. And what are the touch points? It's radio ad, it could be a video, it could be a piece of content, it could be a blog post, it could be an email, an SMS they receive. It could be, actually in Australia, people still use their phones at Woolworths before buying something.
I knew that.
But now, I want to know Alicia's point, because Alicia has always been into the brand part. I just see the call before and now Nova. Yeah. So tell us more about
so
what's changing.
I mean, I almost flip what you guys say. So branding is kind of the core pillar that needs to sit across every client and advertiser, right? Branding is how you make sure that you've got people always coming into your funnel, right? It's future-proofing yourself so that a customer, they might not be a customer today, but in 6 months' time, they may be. And how do we make them a customer? It's through the really consistent branding.
Yeah.
So, branding is important to drive people into the funnel, and then it's kind of up to you guys to take over.
And for me, I read a study. It says from Tracksuit was very interesting, and I can share it with you guys online. Put a link, maybe this video, but it says that brands that are doing brand awareness and performance have almost a 3 times multiplier when it comes to conversion efficiency. And I think that's spot on, because people want to know the story about the brand, what they do, what they stand for, especially after COVID. I think things have changed. People are looking for not the cheapest product, but the best. And why I should buy a product from, why I should use Mailchimp, for instance, the software, why I should, spend money to advertise with Nova. What is these companies all about? What are the innovation? What they stand in the market? And I think brand awareness extremely important. How do I calculate the ROI of brand awareness, though? Can you guys answer that?
Well, there's a lot of tools out there that will suggest that you can look at it. It's more of an attribution question, right? To a certain degree, it's how do you calculate the ROI of brand awareness? And there's tools and capabilities. You talked about different companies out there that are attempting to do this and are doing it well, right? But I think if you're many marketers out there today still look at in-channel attribution, right? And that's where they're spending their time. And I think most marketers also realize that that's probably flawed. And they need to go out and invest in other tools that do take into consideration branding and then lower funnel. So in being able to answer that for all marketers is difficult, but I would suggest there is technology out there now that makes that easier. But also for me is what are you going to do with that data? What are you going to change in your marketing plan, in your media buying, and to operationalize what you're seeing from an attribution perspective or media modeling perspective? So that's probably the bigger question for me. Is there's tools out there, there's calculations out there, there's ability to assess the impact of brand and the impact of performance, but what are you going to change as a marketer, and are you going to look beyond your channel silos? And I think that's something that a marketer will be able to answer in their business.
Yeah, I think holistic marketing strategy, customer-centric approach on customer journey, it's the key in my opinion. I told my clients sometimes they come here and said, what is the value of that? There's the branding piece in our front office. I don't know. I know that probably there's 50,000 cars driving past the street every day. Someone is a client maybe. Yesterday, we launched our campaign on Nova. Actually. It was fun. It was the first radio for us, digital agency doing radio, almost like, whoa.
Yeah.
And it was funny because we got an increase in inquiries. But
did you really?
Yeah, we did, but
We've
all
been
came
live
from
3 days. That was the best news ever.
This is the funny part, right?
Yeah.
They all came from Google search or
Yeah.
direct.
Yeah.
And when we asked the client, I said to my team, please ask Ridia about us straight away. And they were like, oh yeah, I Googled it. I was like, okay. But why did you Google it?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I had that. I had radio. So straight away the attribution changed.
Yeah.
But they actually said to us, but we saw you because we type SEO Perth and you were ranking. We saw the website first, then we had a radio ad, then we Googled it again. So as you can see, people are going
It's
through a
not
journey.
simple.
So we just need to know. Yeah. It's going to be tricky.
It's not linear anymore, right? And look, I would suggest it's never been linear.
Sure.
Never.
But now when you think about just the saturation of brands, of marketing messages, of marketing channels, it gets a lot more complex. And from an agency perspective, you're sitting with brands each day, probably trying to solve this, right? So too at Nova, the role of brand and the role of digital platforms for yourselves. For us, it's around the drive of email and the role it plays within changing or ensuring people are making buying decisions, right? So it is a lot less linear. It's not you start at a radio or TVC and you end on maybe a comparison site or Google search. It's a lot less linear these days. And media's become a lot more fragmented and saturated.
Yeah.
And Google call it the messy middle, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a mess, right?
And people come in and out. You might be, for example, in the market for a car, and then your circumstances change, and you can't afford a new car, so you drop out, and then you drop back in. I think just appreciating each individual categories and brands, consumer journey, and it's so different for every brand as well.
Absolutely.
And if you're a brand that has great brand recognition and you've been in the market for a while versus a new entrant, the path to purchase or the attention you're getting on your advertising or your journeys are going to be, or the spend you need to be making is a lot different. And I would argue, and I'm up for the argument around, if you're a new entrant or if you're a challenger brand and you spend a lot of your efforts focusing on things like maybe last click versus your brand or versus creative in your email versus telling a story, then you're probably speaking to a smaller or limited pool versus maybe looking to open up your universe there and bring people into the top of funnel. So, but that goes down to specific brands where they are in their life cycle and making different decisions in media buying.
And when I went to Sydney to Fremantle that conference, Mailchimp, I had the chance to speak for 5 minutes with, I think it was Kia CMO.
Yes.
It blew my mind, I think. Changed the way I approach lead generation and marketing today. And it was, and I think it falls perfectly with Mailchimp and radio as well. It was like, we're not tracking daily sales anymore. We're not obsessed with daily sales.
Yeah.
We're obsessed with future consideration of considering purchasing a Kia
Yeah.
in
Makes sense.
6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
that metric is extremely important, because if you have people that they're considering buying your brand, you can just fill up.
It's
the pipeline
predictability,
with,
right?
yeah.
Which is what every business aims to drive at the end of the day. And I think to what you said around brand becoming the center of, or the nexus of everything that the business does, it's also how you relate to it. So as much as I think you mentioned 6 or 7 touch points, it's then thinking about how do you make those individual touch points actually meaningful and relatable as a consumer or as a future purchasing decision of whatever product or service that brand is trying to drive, and giving them an opportunity to seamlessly be handheld to that next decision, right? It's something that needs to be taken into consideration, especially if you've got that Google messy middle.
Yeah.
To quote what was said in here, how do we actually make that in the most linear, straightforward process possible and make it easy for them to make that decision on their behalf?
Yeah.
And there's we talked about it earlier. There's triggers. There's technology out there that enables you actually to follow that journey.
Yeah.
Right. And I know obviously you know it really well in terms of what we do from a customer journey perspective with email and triggers off the back of that, and also into SMS. So there's again technology out there that enables you to really enhance your customer journeys with an end user or a customer, but you need to be adopting those, and you actually need to be operationalizing those in your business.
Absolutely.
Because there's no lack of tech. It's just, okay, what am I going to change off what I'm seeing?
Absolutely.
The other big thing I think is so important is the creative and what you're actually saying. Like I know that's probably not in our topics of conversation.
I was about to say that. So perfect.
Context is so important, and what you're actually saying. Like I think there's some research that suggests that 60% of a campaign's effectiveness comes down to its creative as opposed to the actual media placement. Yeah. So from our side, that is huge.
Yeah.
From a radio perspective, it's almost an afterthought if you think about it. So, most campaigns are built around TV, right? I guess that is changing as audiences are kind of shrinking with TV. But you've got this big grand TVC that you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on, and then you've got your outdoor placements, so your billboards, which are often just clips of the TVC.
Yeah.
And then the radio commercial is kind of doesn't really relate to any of that.
Yeah.
And you spoke about, the connection and the emotional attachment that you feel towards a brand. Like that's where the creative comes in to play.
And
so
consistency
important.
with that branding across
100%.
different channels is so important.
That's when a good brand, solid brand strategy and foundation come into place. Tone of voice. And
you got to make it easy for them to recognize
Yeah.
at every different step of the process. Otherwise, you've lost out.
Yeah.
Or you've made it hard for them to purchase. So making that decision completely an afterthought rather than a priority.
So I'll flip that creative word to content, because for us here at Dilate, content is audio, is video, is copywriting, is design, is everything really that gets consumed by the client. So I think that content needs to sing the same song, and it comes from we have a process of getting clarity. It starts with that. Is your brand on point? What are your whys? What's your tone of voice? What's the target market? If you're targeting everyone, targeting no one, because that's what I say to my client. What are your videos? How do you want your photos to be and stuff like that? It's extremely important. Actually, we just went through our own brand strategy to make everything on point, and it's a beautiful process, by the way. But in the long term, that's all works, in my opinion. So
it's also then how that creative sits within the media you're about to buy. Because you touched on people's, attention. And the world that we now live in is we are impatient. right?
Extremely important.
I still remember the days when I used to have to, I might be showing my age, I used to have a phone to call someone to get a taxi, right? And I would sit there for 30 minutes, right? And sit there and wait for this taxi to arrive. Or I would be looking through the channels. I had 4 channels to choose from, right? I'm showing my age. Now, if that Uber doesn't turn up in...
Is that TV in colour?
Yeah, it was colour. It was colour. But if my Uber doesn't arrive in 3 minutes, I get upset. I'm cancelling that. Maybe not 3, maybe 6.
Sure.
Or if I haven't got a lot of channels to choose from and a lot of options, I'm going to get upset. Or if my Amazon package doesn't arrive next day, people have no patience. And we talk about it in terms of smooth selling. You need to take away the friction to purchase your products. If you've got amazing creative, and you're the experts in this, but your message is, 15 seconds in, and you're putting that ad into a Facebook feed or an Instagram feed, it's lost.
Yeah.
You're just another car ad. So the creative is, I agree, is absolutely imperative, be it email, be it radio, be it TVC or Meta or social, sorry. But you also need to realise people's attention is wavering, and you need to make sure you've got that attention.
Totally.
Context is king at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It needs to be right for the contextual environment that you're buying into.
Yeah.
Radio is great on that. They know that they have that 15 seconds
Yeah.
to nail it.
To make that impression.
There are some challenges though that come with that, because obviously we have broadcast radio and then we've got our podcast network. The amount of times where I see this brand use the same 30-second commercial that they use on radio in their podcasts blows my mind, because if you think about it, you're in someone's ears. It's actually a really intimate experience, and yelling, tools, or something really retail focused in someone's ears can actually be quite off-putting. So it's about understanding the context as to where the placement's going to live.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, whilst we're there then, let's talk about the, we touched about the multi-touch attribution, what the winner, what the winners. Everyone's a winner.
Yeah.
Every channel is really a winner.
Clients are winner.
And I love the touch on the patients, because nowadays clients want everything. They have these shiny thief syndromes. Oh, my competitor is doing this, I have to do it. Oh, I have to do it now. Or let's do emails and customer journeys. They watch half an hour webinar about customer journeys. They want everything.
Was it our webinar? Was it the webinar?
Loyalty.
So let's touch on that. I recommend everyone to be patient when we build these things, because we need to understand what works and what doesn't. It takes time to get it right. But acquisition and retention. Now, getting new customers is getting more expensive, and it will be more and more. Perfect example, a plumber in Perth, 1 click, $70. It's not feasible anymore unless you're a big company, any trades. So big companies are pushing away the smaller companies. Search is getting more expensive. Retention, it's something that people don't look at. They want new leads. But I think people are sitting on a gold mine, which is a database. There's companies that have done 30 years of business and never sent an email out. What do you think about acquisition or retention? What are your thoughts on acquisition? Is it challenging, or retention is more challenging? Or which one is more important as well?
Yeah, I think the trap that you don't want to put yourself into is actually thinking that retention can't lead to acquisition, right? So acquisition, yes, is important, but it's not sustainable given the competitive landscape of every business trying to compete for the same online or digital real estate, right? So from a retention standpoint, you put a really good point out there to how do we increase, say, a lifetime value of a customer by influencing how they buy, when they buy, why they should buy again. But don't forget that these customers are also your most loyal advocates.
Absolutely.
Right? So how can you actually take that channel and give them the keys, or feel empowered to then attract a new subset of customers, their family and friends, maybe like a refer a friend campaign that you could drive around that. So then you can still lean in and acquire more net new customers ongoing. But at the same time, you're learning more about the context of what they prefer, how they consume content, what sort of products or services resonate best for them in that sense. So definitely not a one and done sort of strategy, but you don't want to put yourself into the trap of feeling, do I have to choose acquisition? Do I have to choose retention? Because they should, in all fairness, it should intertwine and lead to the same outcome, which is revenue.
Absolutely, yeah. Anthony, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's everything Eugene says there is bang on, as always. But I think
We love Eugene.
but just to add to that as well, I think it is, particularly in this period that we're about to come into, particularly for retail, right? You've got fairly strong periods where you're going to hit your numbers or you're not. You know, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, going into peak holiday season, Christmas period,
all of it.
absolutely right. Yeah. And it's actually a great time for acquisition. Honestly, it is,
yes.
from a new customer acquisition perspective.
Yeah.
That's probably the best time to drive new customers. But what type of customers are you driving, and what behaviours are you setting there? And then what is your plan after this busy period to re-engage? Because people are clearly just there to buy gifts, or they're there for a sale, or whatever it may be. But how do you actually continue to drive loyalty and sustainable loyalty? And that is one thing to think about coming into this period. The other thing then is, you're right, you can't just do retention, and you can't just do acquisition. Right? It does need to be bled into each other. But the challenge is, as I mentioned, it's really saturated at the moment. Inflation is real for people, but also is real for
Feeling the
when it
pinch.
comes to media.
Yeah.
So we need to be smarter with our dollars. And for us, obviously, it's an own channel, email. So selfishly there, it probably leans well to us to make sure that you are using the data and you are enriching that data and you are driving both acquisition and all the strategies that you
And segmentation is the key in there. Probably.
Yeah,
segmentation.
Understanding who your customers are, what they're doing, and what they need.
Correct.
And we do that through produce content that feeds them in the journey and keep them engaged and move them across different segments, which is automated with Mailchimp, by the way. You can set those triggers, which makes my life much easier as a marketer.
You're welcome, Rob.
Personally, you are welcome.
Personally, you're
But
welcome.
how can radio help retention? Because it can help acquisition. We know that.
course. Radio is
Greatly.
fantastic.
Radio is fantastic for acquisition.
Yeah.
You reach an insane amount of people
Yeah.
at the same time. But
Yeah.
how can radio help retention?
It's a good question. I feel as though, like, even just quite simply put, being active and speaking about your brand keeps you top of mind at the end of the day. You know, even if people are or have purchased, hearing about what the brand is up to, what they're doing, their new products in a broadcast medium actually can help with the retention side of things as well. It's a little bit harder, obviously, with our channel compared to what you guys do, but you can still do it. I think you need to be smart.
It's great for me. It's great for campaigns, radio.
Yeah.
So I thought about Sushi Hub.
Yes.
There's this ad that they have on radio that wakes me up every morning. There's
Sing
this
it.
jingle.
Rob, sing it.
Sing
Sing it.
Hub, right? Keeps going into my head, and I went to Sushi Hub eventually to buy sushi, and then just hearing that song straight away, like I will go there again because they might have an offer for, if I hear an offer, or there's brands like, John Hughes, for instance. His voice is, you guys are not from WA, but you're from WA, you know John Hughes' voice. Obviously, as every car brand, so appeals to everyone. And hearing his voice is it's quite connected with the brand, but it all comes from actually brand and how many touch points they go through.
And timing, right? So what a great example, right? If you've got a radio ad playing, and you might have a celebrity that's in that ad, why not amplify that with what you're doing in email, or at least align it,
100%.
right? And vice versa.
Yeah.
So I actually think moving beyond the channel silos and looking beyond the measurement of channels is really important for a marketer. Because I actually think that, and look, this is 101 stuff, but making sure the right time, right message, correct, making sure your channels are integrated with the message there, absolutely, you should be doing that.
Even
Also
so, like
great.
with those two examples that you shared, and you'll have to give me your best John Dukes impersonation if it's that prominent in WA. You know, going just to summarize, like the two examples, it's brand recall,
Literally
and brand
recall.
association,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it plays a significant part in terms of how you go about that, and regardless of whether the channel is radio or email or SMS or perhaps through a retargeting campaign, as long as you're empowering the individual to associate that, they're feeling that, you know, they have a sense of ownership in that brand as well.
Yeah.
Right. You know, we speak about this a lot within our research. Right. We have the science of loyalty, which is what we're presenting about tomorrow.
Yeah.
About it, and definitely download it online. It's my shameless plug.
You can do it.
There's a link somewhere.
There's a link somewhere.
And sorry, you're finishing.
Yeah. But it literally talks about the same sort of things here. It's a matter of what motivates you to pursue a brand. What are the prompts that are placed in front of you, is influencing the when, and then, of course, how. Right. So how are you going to make that next step? How do you make that easy for that person to feel empowered to actually be doing that themselves?
Yeah.
That sounds great.
So Eugene and I have a call every Monday, right?
Yes.
Because our partnership and
I hope you look forward to it.
oh yeah, every Monday. And no, honestly, and then there's great value. And one day we discussed about the cost of doing nothing. Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
Oh, interesting.
when it comes to retention, is because people think, oh, I don't do it and I don't spend money, and then they don't realize what happens with retention. So obviously, acquiring a customer is extremely expensive, but they don't realize that not nurturing their customers costs double that, because your competitors are actually making it.
Yeah.
So you're gonna lose potential sales, but your competitors getting more sales as a consequence. So what do you think about that? Because we discussed that a lot, and I think the cost of doing nothing, it's an hidden cost that is huge. How do they change the status quo and start doing something?
I am like a broken record when it comes to this. I'm so passionate about this sort of concept because, you know, you're right. Like brands when they think about growth, they think about benefits, right? What are the shiny bells and whistles that I can attain out of that? But in reality, when you're making a hard decision, it's not about the fear of missing out. It's about you against your concerns and how you alleviate and de-risk that situation. So rather than appealing to the fear of missing out, what we should be doing here is appealing to the fear of messing up, right?
Yeah.
So how do we de-risk that situation and make sure that we feel empowered that we're making the right sort of decision in that standpoint, which dovetails to this concept around the cost of doing nothing, because effectively what you're changing is the status quo, right? The current state of affairs. If you don't invest the time and calories required to pursue that strategy, what else is everyone else within your industry going to do that's 9 times ahead, or however many times ahead, sorry. And what will you lose rather than gain by delaying that action, right? And it's something that every business should consider, especially when they're thinking about investing towards a new strategy, to think about it within that perspective or that lens, because effectively you're competing with the status quo. It doesn't even matter like whether you're evaluating another strategy or whatever. It's about how can you get better from where you're at right now,
yeah.
right? What do you stand to lose by not doing that action? If you're interested, it does come from some backed research as well. So following on from the Challenger Sale Method from Matt Dixon's book, he followed through with another book called The Jolt Effect, which is
Which I bought. It's
yeah,
after
our discussion.
great value that book. Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
And there's a methodology behind that. There's research where he's looked at top performing sellers within their context, and they just understood the purchasing decision from a behavioral science perspective rather than a commercial perspective, which is, at the end of the day, a very human way to do business, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's what we often tend to forget and ignore, but we have to constantly remind ourselves that you take these decisions based on emotion, and then you justify them with logic, not the other way around.
Yeah,
exactly. For us, we try to engineer proactivity in our digital strategies and interaction with clients, because probably the main reason for churn is when you don't have an answer to the question, what's next? And this is why we were a performance agency, we went to a creative blended into performance, because when they ask what's next, well, how's the database looking? Let's look into that. Or do you want to run a campaign? Let's do radio, right? I want to be the one that can answer the client every time, and also proactively tell the client, you're doing well, but you're missing out on this amount of opportunities. When you want to take them, it's up to you, but every day you're gonna miss $1 or 10 or 1,000 or whatever it takes. So it's a great topic, that one. What's your thoughts about it? Because I know Eugene is very passionate.
I've read the book.
We'll talk about hours.
Remind me of the original question.
The cost of doing nothing. The cost of not moving forward in a marketing strategy.
Yeah, there's so many examples of brands that have decided for whatever reason to go quiet or turn off and see their results suffer, right? And that comes from like brand as well as their sales. So very quickly you see them turn back on. And that's more from a traditional media perspective. So there's a huge cost of missing out, because if your competitors are spending and you're not,
it's the classic, I reach my target, I don't have to do anything, it's fine. And then when something happens, you're not ready, you're reactive. Your approach is reactive instead of being proactive towards the problem.
And I think there's a lot of examples of brands that have had to, for whatever reason, not spend in certain periods or had to pull back or had different strategies that they had to deploy. And there's been some pretty obviously dramatic impacts on that in this day and age. I'd also say there's probably two things that brands need to be conscious of over a period of time is innovation. So how are they innovating and how are they testing and learning? And if brands do this day in, day out, but if I look at it even in our own channels, test and learn. If it's email, look at that subject line, look at that funnel, see where people are falling off or coming in, look at different avenues to engage. But the other side of it then is understand your customer, because your customer could also be evolving. And there is enough data, enough technology out there to ensure that shouldn't be a surprise. So I think, as we talked about earlier, acquisition versus retention or attribution in channel silos, your customer doesn't look at it like that.
No.
So making sure you're staying in tune with your customer is an obvious statement, but I've seen a lot of brands that have probably been derailed because they haven't. So a couple of things there that are a bit of a watch out as things become a lot harder in the environment over the next probably 6 months. It's not going to get easier. Things are going to continue to increase, so it's something to watch out for.
I like that customer-centric strategy, because you can't think tactics anymore. You can't say, I want to do just Facebook, or, well, if your customer is 14 years old, it's probably on YouTube. No, it doesn't even know what Facebook is, because the parents are there, doesn't want to be there.
Sorry, Rob, what's Facebook?
You're trying to be young, right?
I am young. But
so there's a lot of, and it's about putting the right content at the right time in front of the right people in the right place. Yeah. So there's a lot of...
I'm going to do selling for you as an agency here, because agencies, I think, role is imperative at the moment, right? And the good agencies like yourselves stay in tune with what is happening out in the market. You guys often speak to new players that are coming in, new tech solutions. And I think brands, because a lot of the marketing teams have probably shrunk over the years, not always, but probably shrunk over the years. The role of an agency now, and tech partners and broadcast partners are important.
Absolutely.
So really to try and stay ahead of the curve, understand what the trends are, and look at the research that's available beyond without ignoring your existing customers.
Absolutely.
And the data you already sit on. So, that's just my hill that I'll keep preaching on, is the role of an agency.
Goes to the next point, the evolution of marketing channel. Perfectly. So,
perfect segue.
Very good.
Where do we start from? Mailchimp. I've been here for years. Everyone knows Mailchimp. Who doesn't know Mailchimp? I had people telling me I'm gonna send the Mailchimp. You know, the old people thinking that
Yeah,
they
yeah.
realize that that's the name of the platform.
So send the Mailchimp instead of sending an email. I love
Exactly.
that.
So
I love that. I think you
became a verb like let's Google it or let's you know.
That's good brand recognition.
It was.
Yeah, and look, we've got brilliant brand recognition. We've got a brilliant brand.
Amazing.
We have been in the market in Australia for 20 odd years, and we have hundreds of thousands of customers here across all verticals, right? So from retail to government to education. So our business has been significant here. We've been helping brands from small and medium brands to mid-market to enterprise brands for years here. What probably has changed is our ongoing investment in our technology, and you probably have seen in our platform now how that's even evolved over the recent years. And probably one thing that has changed is Mailchimp was acquired by Intuit. So in this market, we own our QuickBooks as well as Mailchimp. So now we're Intuit Mailchimp, and I think with that we have been able to ensure we're investing in the product, and without losing what we're known for in terms of usability and really enhancing now the capabilities, and that's been our biggest focus area. The other part is up until April this year, we never had boots on the ground in Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
And Australia is our fourth largest market, and we are not a small business. So our investment into this market now, we're enhancing, and we see the importance of this market. So boots on the ground that we've placed in this market, and we are going to support agencies, and we're going to support our local brands, and we're going to acquire more customers and really drive the email channel and SMS channel in this market. So lots changed in the last couple of years.
SMS just got released when I was there in September, so it was great.
Our velocity for new product is we have a great appetite for
I
it.
was impressed with, besides the visual appealing platform, because it's very visual appealing. It was, created by designers. So the integration, the native integrations, it's just a library of integration, the new API, allows you to really automate that process and enhance capabilities of small, medium enterprise business to, send the right message at the right time. The journey builder, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's not just sending an email blast. It's so much more about that, integrating SMS. And the Shopify integration was great as well. You can target people on behavioral triggers and, each stage of the journey when buying a product. I think it was great.
Yeah.
Transactional emails and stuff. So definitely a great platform, great step up from, the last couple of years. It's probably, for me, it's probably the best or one of the top two in the market worldwide at the moment. So well done, guys. Well done.
Thank you. Well, we spent a lot of time and effort on that.
I believe so. I believe so. When I went to Sydney, it was really amazing to talk to some of your colleagues, that work in America and UK. So was very impressed.
We'll make sure to pass on the credit.
Yeah, we will.
Definitely. Guys did a great job.
Thank you.
Here first.
and Eugene, anything else to add? Because obviously you there's a lot with the agency, the ones that then use Mailchimp to do the day-to-day work and deliver results for their clients. So what are the new things that?
Yeah, from a functionality standpoint, you've hit pretty much every nail on the head in terms of like what we are able to provide now. Email marketing, whilst it's our bread and butter, it's way beyond that, right? So we've started to accommodate across different marketing channels, whether it's social, SMS, as you've rightfully pointed out, the automated customer journeys, which are so important when it comes to a lot of the topics that we've just discussed today, as well as the AI-driven insights that come out of the data that you encompass out of it. So really thinking about it from the lens of more of an all-in-one marketing CRM, right? So really the aim of the game with a lot of the strategies that we liaise with Dilate on a weekly, daily basis. Heck, like we meet every Monday, but like he is probably my starred icon next to you.
There we go.
So it's reciprocated.
It is.
It's all about not just from the perspective of how many more contacts or how many more people do we accumulate within our database, but figuring out how much more can we learn about them, right? So going back to your point, context is king, right? So how do we actually collect that context is something to consider there, whether it's the content of the that they choose to consume or like the mediums that they choose to absorb that in, right? And automated customer journeys makes a perfect use case for this, because you might sign up for an email newsletter, and that first step might be an email, but what if you forget your phone? What happens then? Or like you lose the keys to your email inbox. Hopefully not. But then SMS comes up as another channel, right? If you don't choose to consume SMS, or if for whatever reason you don't have access to that, what next? Retargeting, right? Push them into a custom audience, and then make sure that there's more exposure and no stone left unturned, and then to couple with a lot of the radio advertising that you've described there, Alicia, that can then happen in the background, obviously outside of Mailchimp, but it's all a cohesive strategy altogether nonetheless. Right?
It's a customer-centric platform. That's what I like about it. The first thing you see is your audience. Yeah. It's not your email performance. It's actually your audience. It's not how's it going. And I think it
makes you think.
Yeah. Makes you think that that's your most important asset. It's actually the most important asset.
It is.
So
the AI side of it, sorry to labour on this point, but I think, Eugene, when you touched on AI, it wouldn't be a marketing podcast without talking about AI. I'm surprised
it's a hot topic.
But I think from our perspective, yes, using all the data that is available to us, using the data that's available through the platforms you talked about, Shopify, you could talk about Wix, you could talk about the others that we've got 300
plus.
Yeah.
The one with Canva is unbelievable.
Oh, we launched the Canva one recently.
That is like unbelievable. So you guys do a brand kit on Canva. Mailchimp is connected. Perfect. Wow. Talking about brand consistency, right?
Yeah. We talked about creative before, right, as well. Yeah. But then, okay, how do you bring all that sophistication in and all those integrations in, but also still make it easy to use? And I think that's where we've looked at AI and really just improving the ability to, I wouldn't say one button press off you go, but it's not far off that.
The generative AI is pretty much that.
Good, right? So
then
type,
I need this, and we'll generate a message. So
that's correct. And then you think about the marketing department's getting maybe shrunk a little bit. It all that's
helps.
Yeah, it helps when you've only got a few people to do things. We're really looking at it that way in terms of making the marketer's job easier. I think that's important across all channels.
Marketing managers today, especially small businesses, are pushing button press, like pulling levers, pressing buttons everywhere. So that helps quite a lot. More like give them more time and bandwidth to
work on their creative, work on their strategy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about radio, because we had a beautiful session here with the whole team, and Alicia came with her own team and talk about radio, and everyone was like, "Okay, it's not just FM, AM, and it's so much more than that." Let's go.
I mean, radio has evolved so much in the last 10 to 15 years. I think there is a stereotype in the market that no one listens to the radio, right? And people are consuming in a very different way. Traditionally, it was, you breakfast and you drive, you tune in and you drive home, and that was it. Whereas now we're seeing kind of the listener listen throughout the day. You might wake up in the morning and let's say you've got like an old school clock radio. I don't, but some people do. Do you? There you go. Rob is okay. This is Rob's day.
That's normal, right?
This is Rob's day. So he wakes up to Nova,
right? I'm old, right?
Yeah. Then you go downstairs, right? And you say, "Hey Alexa, play Nova," right? So you're listening or you're streaming Nova. Then you hop in the car, you're listening to traditional radio again. Then on your lunch break, you're perhaps listening to a podcast. So we're very much moving to an all-of-audio approach. That is all about audience first. So similar to what you guys are saying, we're using broadcast and traditional radio for that awareness, but driving people down the funnel with the consideration and the conversion with our digital products. So that includes obviously streaming and podcasting. The attribution that comes with that is obviously a bit more sophisticated as well. So that's kind of where we're moving to.
But I was, the geo-targeting as well is very important. Also, like weather conditions can trigger an ad, which imagine if you have air conditioning company and it's 35-degree days in Perth. First thing you think of is like better fix the air conditioning, or that could work. Or if you sell ice creams as well. Perfect, right?
Exactly. Impressive.
Or pool. pull ads and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, so I think I was impressed. I didn't know my car had digital radio, for instance.
Yeah.
Every new car have digital radio. Doesn't
Yeah.
go into the normal frequency, but it's like 4G.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
DAB.
Which gives
Yeah.
probably radio
Yeah.
targeting capabilities. I think
Correct.
you have some segments that don't.
Yeah.
Remember.
Oh gosh, we've just partnered with News Corp, so we've got access to about 800 plus audience segments,
Yeah.
which
Nice.
for us, which we were way back with like 200 segments. So we're evolving, and it's a priority for us. We're still never going to be able to perform the role that I think you guys can, or the digital channels can, because at the end of the day, we can't make people make a purchase, right? It's up to the product itself to be
Yeah.
attractive or compelling enough, be the right price.
Yeah.
But what we can do really well is get people to that decision point. Yeah.
But I think I
Yeah.
like this point because people think a Facebook ad or a Google search ad makes people buy, which is not true. Is
good
the
point.
experience they have offline, online with your brand that makes them buy the product. Is the landing page okay? Is the conversion rate optimization done properly? Is the user experience okay? No, if your landing page is bad, people are not going to buy.
Good
No,
point.
if
Yeah,
if
very
the
good
content on
point.
your website is not it's still about you know Australia leading company, or we are the best in who said that,
Yeah.
and it's not customer centric, probably people are not going to buy. So there's making radio doesn't help people make a decision or send them there. And then obviously give you an example, if Avi Norman is doing radio
Yeah.
and they decide to a customer said, okay, let's go there, I'm going to buy my fridge there, and goes in and the employee is just rude and doesn't want to talk to them, they're going to go to good guys and buy the fridge there.
Yeah.
But that you can't influence that, right?
Yes.
So our business needs to understand there's so much more than just advertising and marketing customer journey. Also, their sales process needs to be on point, and the customer experience online and offline needs to be great. So email help with that. You can send a survey. How was your experience? Let's improve that. And radio can help. We had a client that I can't disclose the name. They need a help to reposition the way they are perceived because they have the monopoly. So people can't really make a choice.
Yeah.
But they decide to invest money because we want it to be seen as helping people through these days of hardship and inflation, as you mentioned before. There's great ways to do it. There's radio, there's TV in there, there's email, there's content that we can produce. And I think how an agency like us is working nowadays has evolved from the performance marketing of the PPC and SEO that are tactics to
Correct. Yeah.
how do we partner with Mailchimp or Nova or Vivo, for instance, and create a beautiful marketing strategy that and we go by customer state rather than tactic or
There's different roles of the channels, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely different roles of the channels, and you can absolutely track. I'm sure from a brand perspective of radio, you can obviously our digital channels are a little easier. Again, channel siloed channels. You can look at last click, how people open my emails, have they click through. Australians actually have the highest open rates than any other market in the country, which is great. Highest click through rates as well. There's an affinity there with certain channels, and I think certain channels play a role in a journey. And some other channels are great at storytelling. Right, it's a storytelling channel. It's a brand perception channel. You saw, and frighteningly, and to look back at this, but if I look at during COVID period, nobody was selling anything for a period of time there on through an ad. Right, it was like, hey, don't sell it, mate. We're just trying to get this through. So they used radio and they used TV as a, to your earlier point, almost just touching base, showing there's an element of we're here for you. That was really interesting. All right. Then it's sort of, as things progressed, we moved back into the traditional forms, but that was impressive. How some brands use print and radio and their emails to tell a different message.
Absolutely.
So there's roles in each of the channels, is what I'm saying here, and I think it's our duty as platforms and as providers, as well as marketers, to understand the roles of these channels.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
And everything is important. Everything is 1% or 3% or 5% or 10%. But that better customer journeys. That's what we're looking for, right? From start to finish. And my clients today, when I speak to them, I just speak to them about know your customers and know what they go through and what they need, what are their challenges.
Yeah.
I don't even speak about platforms anymore because they said to me, oh, yeah, I actually need help into the action phase or need help into creating brand advocates. This was a business. The body built on word of mouth and referral because doing, acquisition was too expensive and you had to, do the hard work. And then till today is still our primary channel, word of mouth and retention, And we look at the customer journey and experience and, we started doing radio now. We're going to do billboards tomorrow, or, the front office here. I think, as you said, every channel is important. We just need to understand when that channel plays into the decision making or how or supports the journey of your customers because they're all different as well. So.
Yeah, and what role the technology plays, tech stack of a marketer or an agency? Yeah. Because, like I said earlier, it's complicated. It's a lot more complicated these days than it probably has ever been before.
Absolutely.
So understanding the true role of a channel, as well as understanding the what it's delivering for you is really important because those dollars are not getting, marketing spend isn't going up necessarily on average. So that I would suggest is the tech is out there, the partnerships are out there. You need to be It's
efficiency. People are looking for, do I spend my money more efficiently?
Yeah.
So that's
where you guys come into play.
That's usually what we
You guys are the
advise.
experts.
Yeah. We'll try to do our best. With that. But it's been an awesome chat, guys. Thank you so much. Alicia.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Obviously, tomorrow, Alicia, myself, and Eugene will present our event about better customer journeys. Anthony, you're not going to be here, but hopefully the next one, we'll do another date. Thank you so much again, guys. And to the next one. All right.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
It was great. Thank you.
All right.
So good.
Let's go grab lunch.